I was working with a really famous photographer, and this photographer's like, bro, it's ugly. The stylist comes over to me, she's like, dude, you're getting fired. So I'm like frantically brushing, and this photographer goes, stop. He's like, that's perfect.
Natalie Anne is internationally regarded as Australia's leading hair artist, expert, and social media educator.
We were in Vegas. I was with my baby brother who was shooting my content. She's like, nah, that's Desi Perkins. He's like, I'm just gonna go tell her that you need to do her hair. I was like, dude, you can't do that. Within 2 hours, I got a DM. Actually, I'd love my hair done tomorrow morning.
She has curated partnerships with industry-leading brands such as GHD, Bellini Shoes, O&M, J'adore Hair Extensions, and Timely.
I'll probably get cancelled even saying this, but
Natalie Anne, welcome to the pod.
thank you so much for having me.
So Natalie, you're, I guess, in many ways, Australia's leading hair artist, entrepreneur, and social media educator, which is quite a lot. And you've worked with celebrities, both Australian and international. Take me inside the celebrity styling industry.
Ooh, I'd like to call just quote unquote celebrities for me. I think depending on who's listening, for me, the new celebrity is the most influential, right? So I work with a lot of influencers, and I have done for the last 10 to 15 years. It's exciting and fun, and I think when you are going on that journey and you want to work with the top echelon of whatever industry, there's a lot of etiquette, a lot of skill, and there's a lot of privacy. Like I always say, my kit needs an NDA, because you just got to keep your mouth shut, and and you've got to be really focused when you are working with any particular client on that big event. They're ultra focused, and you need to be ultra focused, and don't be offended. Thicken up, good skin.
Yep. So for you, how did you start to crack into, I guess, the influential space or the celebrity space? Because I think a lot of aspiring hairstylists or people that are really good at their craft are maybe asking themselves, well, how do I even get into those circles?
Well, I think back then was very different to where it is now. I think now it's a lot easier. I think if you're relevant, you're sharing your skill online, if you're creating an obnoxious amount of content and people can see that you physically see, rather than a curated book like it used to be, or having agencies or representation, the times have changed. I think now it's your relevancy, who you're working with, and that's really easy to achieve if you just keep working for free, keep putting your hand up for every opportunity, don't say no to anything, and document that journey, and you'll be surprised who's watching.
So when you say don't say no to anything in particular around, I guess, let's just say the celebrity space, what's some of the craziest projects that you've worked on that you might have said no to, but you were really glad you dived in?
I don't actually know the answer to that question. The craziest project.
Well, let's change it slightly. So what are some of the craziest projects that you've worked on personally?
Actually, I'll tell you a funny story, reframe it slightly. One of the most influential, she's top 50 most influential influencers in the world. I had the opportunity to work with Desi Perkins, and it was by accident. We were in Vegas. She was actually going to do some research for her new skincare line. And I was with my baby brother who was shooting my content, and he saw her in the corner of his eye in Vegas just before she was about to go into the lift. He's like, nah, that's Desi Perkins. I was like, no, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm just going to go tell her that you need to do her hair. I was like, dude, you can't do that. I was so embarrassed. When you if there was a hole, you could just jump in. He runs straight up to her. He was I think 20 at the time. And he was just like, my sister's here. She's an amazing hairdresser. We're here from Australia. I'm here shooting her content. Do you need your hair done? And she just found it super endearing, And her baby brother used to shoot her content. And she's just like, yeah. So I came over, introduced myself. Dude, honestly, within 2 hours, I got a DM being like, hey, actually, I'd love my hair done tomorrow morning. And that's how I worked with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then that's a crazy story. Do you know what I mean?
What was the outcome of that? What did that lead to? Because you know how sometimes these weird serendipitous moments happen to
Yeah,
us.
I mean, look, I don't live and work in LA, so I feel like it would have been a domino effect while if I stayed there. But coming back home, that clout, working with that person, and then obviously working with other influencers in LA during that sort of PR tour. When you get back home, it's like, especially in Australia, they want to see you succeed in the US before they give you that pat on the back. And it's great learnings and the networks and the opportunities. And I feel like that'll continually evolve, especially when we do head to the US.
It's an interesting one because we've noticed the same effect with ourselves, wherein like in our local market, we're doing a lot. We're working with some big names, but like for some reason, for an Australian, when you work in the US, it's like the Chris Hemsworth effect. It's like, oh, okay, now you're accepted in Hollywood. Now you're the real deal. Now we'll embrace you back home.
It's actually crazy. It's crazy. And I wish that wasn't the case. But I guess for people like us, I'm assuming you're the same, there's never going to be a ceiling. So I feel like we need to forever like try and keep reaching for those moments, And having someone else saying you can't is probably that fuel that you need to just like keep going.
Do you think for someone who is in Australia right now and wants to kind of take the same trajectory as you, they do need to broaden their scope to be more international?
Yeah, I definitely think they do. I think if we are going back to the celebrity conversation, we don't really have any. So I'm like, pack your kit, bootstrap it, head to the US and start working, man. Assist, like grind every day, find out who's who, find out what coffee they drink, make sure you rock up with it, like invest in your education, whether or not you're just like watching every single possible YouTube tutorial that there is, every interview, every backstage situation, just so that you can see what you need. Because everything you need is online. You just got to spend time navigating, working on it, like figuring out the formula. All you have to do is like there, right? What you do is there. You've already done it. So I feel like if someone just spent 2 days reverse engineering your content strategy, it's actually there.
When you're looking at someone who's, let's say, crushing it with content,
Yeah.
what are some things you like to do and how do you approach reverse engineering someone else's content?
I love looking externally to my industry. I've never looked at my industry per se and looked at the viral content in my industry, because if that's viral now, I want to set trends. I don't want to ride them. So I'm always looking at external industries. Like, for example, I could be looking at your content. I could be then looking at your hook, your CTA, your value proposition for that customer, and then I'll make it relative to my business. So I could be like, take one of your hooks, and I'm like, actually, that's really cool. That could work with this technique. So I'm like, if you have fine hair and you want to blah blah blah, and it works really well for me at the moment. But then obviously not over editing as well, because we're still in the beauty industry and they love that authenticity. So we tried hardcore editing and that just didn't really fly for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen someone who I really admire in the beauty space, and that's Trinity London. And she's like super authentic, doesn't really do much editing at all. It's just her in a bedroom making fun of herself and just having a laugh.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
she's exactly like that in real life. Like I met her at on her PR tour here in Australia, and I have really bad psoriasis. So she was using her BFF cream on me. And she was just so genuine, so hardworking. She made the time to like go out and just meet every single person. So like seeing her open her flagship store and like all the successes, like it just makes me really happy because she's a good human.
What do you think's put her on that kind of trajectory, having spent some time with her?
To be honest with you, watching her more than spending time with her, I think spending time with her, I realized face to face that she's just a really good human, and you see that online. I think she really was entrepreneurial in this series-based content from what I could see. Like she had like the characters in the series, like her friends, and she had like this amazing sense of branding. Like when you think Trini, you think yellow. Like, there's so many different things. And she came into the space at a good age. I feel like she found, her client, like how to dress for your age, how to do your makeup for your age, and she paved the way for so many creators in that bracket. So it's been really cool to watch.
And there's a bit of a myth around that, right? Like social media is a young people or a young person's game.
Definitely a myth.
I would aggressively disagree. Like Chris Do was in his, I believe, late 40s when he started content. You know, Grant Cardone's like towards the later stages of his 60s or 50s, sorry. And I think like, yeah, what's your opinion around the concept of age and social media being a young person's game?
I definitely think that narrative has completely shifted. And we can see that. And I don't think that audiences live in particularly on one platform more than the other. I think your psyche is different when you're on one platform versus another platform, but I don't think it's only old people are on Facebook.
Yeah,
You know?
no, good point. When you started, I guess, looking at social media, like how early or late into your career were you when you started to go, you know what, I need to start capturing this, filming it, editing it, posting it, scheduling it, and putting it out there on the internet?
I was a really early adapter on social media. I started actually creating content when I was promoting nightclubs on MySpace.
Wow.
So
MySpace takes me back.
yeah. So I was really early to content, but then while I was managing nightclubs, that was my side hustle. But I always love what I did. So I then started creating and curating content for Facebook. I would just do the girls that wanted to go to the club's hair and shoot content. We would run like fashion shows in the nightclubs, and we would utilize that content. Back then, we didn't know it was called content. Like it was just photos that I was shooting as the promoter.
Yeah. Influencer
putting
wasn't
it-
really a terminology.
You know, it
Yeah.
really wasn't. Like the term influencer wasn't really there, but I really understood the power of influential people. They were the people that I was inviting to my guest list because those girls were buying or booking tables. Those girls were the ones that could fill the club. Technically, those girls are the influencers of today. So I kind of just by default realized that it was the same strategy. I was just putting it into my social media strategy.
Interesting. And so that started on MySpace, then into Facebook.
Yeah,
So
MySpace, I had 5,000 followers.
was this like 05, 06? Like what?
Pretty much.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. And
And
then-
then from there, Facebook.
Interesting. And this is very early days back when like
Yeah.
content creators wasn't really a thing. It was
Nope.
just like, oh, it's just fun hanging out on social. It's a thing. Were you a club promoter before you really got into hair? Like
Definitely.
explain that.
Yeah. So I was in like club promoting. I think I just finished my apprenticeship. But as you know, like when you're an apprentice, I was making $230.32
A week?
Yeah.
Wow.
paid by check. So, I would go to the bank, put the check in, get my cash. And, you can't live off that. And I was cool with it because I was learning. Hairdressers were rock stars back then. So, like, I was just obsessed with everything about what I did. But, like, let's be real, I had to eat and I had to make money. And I always loved music. I always loved the clubs. And I wasn't a big drinker. So, for me, it was like I might as well work in the club, get paid, and, like, start building this really cool community of people that then kind of started to build my business off. The same DJs and the same singers that I would book in there, I started doing their hair and they became the first lot of celebrities or influencers that I started working with.
So you were kind of in the space around the DJs, around like these micro celebrities around town, like
Yeah.
people know who they are, socialites and
Yes.
people out there kind of like actively, socializing and spending time with others.
Yeah.
Did you find that initially it was like word of mouth, or was it because of MySpace or Facebook, or a mix of both?
I definitely think it was a mix of both, but I think you always have like that one special viral moment that I think, if you speak to any creator, is that pivotal sort of piece of content. I didn't know how to run a business at all. I was on set. I basically fucked up really badly. I was working with a really famous photographer and, if someone preempts something, they're like, you're working with the best photographer and you work with the best stylist. And then all of a sudden you just shit the bed. Like you don't realize that like you know what you're doing. So I start curling this girl's hair and she's Asian, and Asian hair typically tends to over curl. Like it can over style and you overcompensate because it's quite straight. So she ends up over curling and this photographer's like, bro, it's ugly. Like you need to brush it out. The stylist comes over to me. She's like, dude, you're getting fired. Like you need to just sorted out. So I'm like frantically brushing. And this photographer goes, stop. I was like, what? He's like, that's perfect. Shine here, shine here, shine here. It just turned into the most beautiful wave. Meanwhile, I've got no fucking idea how the hell I got it. I was so frantic. Like, I had to then go back and try and reverse engineer this fuck up because this image went viral. My phone was blowing up. My not DMs, it was like my Facebook like inbox back then, and like my cousin was like, what did you put up? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you have all of these bridal inquiries. I'm like, I don't even do bridal. She's like, well, you are now, because like I just had all of these inquiries for this new vintage wave. And little did people know, like it was like the most hardcore day of my life. Like I thought I was going to lose my job, but it was pivotal in my career.
Meanwhile, everyone's like, what a genius.
This is what I need for my wedding. I'm booking you 24 months in advance. But then also from that, hairdressers wanted to learn that look. So it was like the beginning of my education career too. It was just crazy. It was just one of those days that everything changed.
So that being a defining moment or a transformative moment, like how did you adjust yourself to kind of keep up with the demand? Because oftentimes people have these moments, but they don't quite know how to capitalize on it or quite know what to do with it. Obviously, your background as a promoter, like did that kick into gear? Like what allowed you to really catch that wave and ride it out,
Look,
through different seasons of hairdressing?
I definitely think my club background, what I learned in nightclubs is that the more booked out you are, the busier the line was, the better the club was perceived, right? So we actually said no to a lot. Like I hired my cousin to basically just answer the phone and say we're unavailable for a really long time. And we would just be chilling and, doing pretty much nothing. But I said to her, trust me, if we're going to build this brand, I need to be unavailable. I need to be inaccessible. I need to be the most expensive. And she's like, dude, we need to get paid. I'm like, I get it. But we need to establish that slight arrogance. Like people want what they can't book. And it worked for us, and that's how it sort of all began.
So then take me into that I guess strategy a little bit further. If someone's ringing the phone off the hook and they're like, hey, we've seen this radical thing online. I want to book my wedding. Sorry, we're booked out.
Yeah.
Did word start to get around town? Like how did that actually permeate into, I have to have you, I'll pay you double? Like what did that turn into?
So it was pretty much like a compounded effect of word of mouth. Like you can't book her, like, she only does fashion, or, it was just, that's exactly what it was, to be honest with you. And then obviously slowly, we started to take the clients we wanted, because I wanted to make sure that the brand that I was building my dream client as well. And that helped us. So instead of just taking everyone, which I would love to have done, but I had that bigger picture in my mind. I'm like, this is the perfect client for me. This is what's going to sustain me. This is going to keep me happy. And then also it's going to allow me to create the content that I need to then create more of those customers.
It compounds, right?
Yeah.
So if you have photography and the photography is sporadic and it's like there's a different vibe, different style, different subcontext of fashion or whatever on each post, it just seems a bit hodgepodge. But if you're like, it's refined, it's precise, it's constantly a themed kind of style, you're saying that allowed you to scale your price and scale your clientele within that niche.
Most definitely.
Because most people are scared to do that because they're so terrified that if they niche too hard, they won't have anyone wanting their work.
I totally disagree. Like I went as far as like one look. Like in the hairdressing category, that's like crazy. I literally did that look, rinse and repeat, photographed it, shared it, put it on the most influential person in that local market. Like the yummy mum that everyone talks to when she's doing school pickup, that was the client I wanted because she was then the word of mouth that I needed. And I kept doing that one look over and over until we created the next trend. And the next trend was like the ponytail. And then that ponytail was the same thing. I never strayed my strategy. I was like, this is working. We need to just keep going until it breaks. And
Yeah.
it worked for us.
And then what was your go-to maneuver when something would break? Like take me into something that broke, and then what did you do to pivot out of it?
I definitely think what broke was, I don't necessarily think it broke, but I think you exhaust it, right? So I'm always like, if something's working for me now, I've always got my ear to the ground. Social listening is so important. And like being able to listen to your customer is key. I was always in my DMs, always in my comments, always reading what was next. And that helped us. So if someone was like, I would love to actually see you teach this, I was like, okay, 1 time, 3 times, 300 times. I'm like, there's the opportunity. So then we started to pivot into education or pivot into product. Like I love that, but I can't get that with that product. And that's how product sort of opened up.
I really like your perspective there around like social listening, and I understand what you mean there, but like really unpack that. Like, what do you mean by social listening? How does someone do that? And how do you start to monetize something when you see it enough?
I think obviously there's so many AI tools and like tech stacks that you can implement in your business depending on who's listening to basically really unpack what social listening could be, and definitely do it more strategically. But I think for those who are just starting out, honestly, read every single comment that you're being given. And if you don't have a big audience, read the comments of your competitors. Like that is everything you need to know about what someone wants. Like every time I'm going to launch a product now, right? I'm going to all of the competitors and reading every single comment that comes with their latest drop or what's coming, or because the clients are there going, oh my God, I loved this, but I hated the nozzle. Oh, I loved this, but I hated the feeling. Oh, actually, this is just shit. You know, I feel like that's to me truly what social listening is about. And survey your customers, ask them, ask them what they want, ask them what they don't like, be up in your stories. And I know there's going to be crickets, but I used to even like ask myself questions on Instagram and then set up a fake profile and answer them and then put up more questions so that I'd have something to talk to.
You would comment on your own post.
Yeah. I had like 4 fake pages and it wasn't to stalk my husband. It was just to talk to myself. And I don't know if you remember this, and I don't know if it was actually a thing, but you used to have engagement pods, where people would be like, they'd flood to your post and like basically start commenting to build the algorithm up to tell, the big bad algorithm man that this is worthy of you sharing, right? I'm Lebanese, so I have lots of family members, and I used to pop it in my WhatsApp group. I'm like, guys, new feed, like go, like everyone would comment on my post to help that virality,
That's genius, and it creates like a little bit of a engagement tornado.
Totally.
Because I understand, and there's some theory here, and again, like it's always predictive. You can never guarantee it, but like within the first 10 to 20 minutes of a post going live, if you get a pile of engagement, it really helps that post, project a bit further.
It does.
And knowing Lebanese families, they're definitely happy to jump in and help, and there's a lot of them.
There was some serious projection there, yes.
But I love the idea of like commenting on your own stuff with great questions and then answering it and going back and forth.
But with a fake profile, so you don't look like a crazy person.
Yeah, you don't want to look nuts. But I like that. And I think, for me, social listening is an important one. Like when I used to work at World Gym, one thing that the CEO said to me is like, hey, go check out the competition. And I was like, why would I do that? And he's like, just suss them out, just get a vibe. And I was like, okay. So I went to every gym on the Sunshine Coast. I took it so seriously. I went to every single gym and pretend I was going to sign up and heard all their pitches, all their price points, all their offerings. And then I would do a 2 or 3 day trial and hit up these different gyms, and then just started asking the members, like, how do you like this place? Oh, the bathroom stinks, or this product sucks, or this equipment never gets fixed on time. And I was getting so much intel on what people did and didn't want from a gym, and then started deploying it.
Pay big money for that, like companies spend years and years and years like researching those things. I used to do the same thing. Before we opened our salon, my favorite thing to do was go and get a blow dry to just like understand. Obviously I became more influential, so I couldn't really disguise myself anymore. So anytime I'd walk in, people thought I was going to poach their staff. So
they're like,
that was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I was like, I just really want to blow dry.
They're like, sure.
Yeah. So, but it's so important.
Yeah. And then for you, I guess like looking back on your career and your you jumping into social media kind of early and not really looking at it like an influencer, like what was your opinion on social? Did you get a kick out of it? Were you getting a dopamine hit from it? Like what kept you in this system producing more content and increasingly trying to talk to yourself and get your family on board and all the rest of it?
Obviously, the phone was ringing, right? So I knew the opportunity was there. Like I could see it, I could feel it. Not only that, I was starting to ruffle feathers. That's always a good indicator that you're doing something right.
How are you ruffling feathers?
So in our industry, there was always this top tier echelon of hairdressers. I mean, it's very different now, but at that time they were all award-winning hairdressers. They were session stylists, so they did magazine, editorial, backstage, and you basically have to die before you get that position. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to wait for someone to die. Like that, they're very, very, very few positions. And I was then asked to do panels with these people to talk about my new success in this digital landscape. Meanwhile, they were still in print media. Like they were still doing magazine work, and they weren't sharing their work on social media because they thought it was like, they used to call me the blogger. I've never written a blog post in my life, right? And I had to really earn the right, because in their opinion, I wasn't skilled enough. I was just really good at marketing. So then I was like, that's valid. I haven't earned the right in the industry yet. So then I would just beat on my craft constantly to then prove myself to that market. They're some of my closest friends now, and I've helped them change their strategy. So now they're all digital influencers in their own right too.
So, but take me into that, like in the early stages of that, you're seen as a digital creator.
Yep.
Almost in some ways, it could be seen as looking down on someone.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
It
Oh, you're
was.
one of those digital creators.
Yes.
But I'm in magazines, I have awards,
Yes.
yada, yada.
Yes.
How did you feel about that, first and foremost? And then how do you think that started to really change?
I loved that. Like for me, it was a challenge, but also I saw it as an opportunity to kind of help them, or exchange value. So like I had a mentor of mine. She really wanted help in the digital space, and I really wanted to get inside her mind. So we kind of exchanged that, which was really cool. But I kind of used it as fuel. I loved that people, even today, even with the brand, the big brands still think that I'm a hairdresser with a little brand. Like, oh, she's got some products. That's cute. Next minute, it's like international distribution, and like I have every successful hairdresser in the country using the product. But really, they thought I was the underdog for a while. I love it. It's fuel, man. It really is. And I love being that person because you're able to listen more and make less mistakes. Shut up, start listening, and just run past them when they're not looking.
I guess for many people, ruffling feathers like that sounds terrifying.
It is.
Nothing could be further from what they would want to have happen.
Yes.
So where do you think your, I guess, ability to be comfortable as an underdog is from, and what I guess gives you a bit of pep or gusto to be that feather ruffler?
I come from a family of no entrepreneurs, I guess. They all hardworking, like super hardworking people. And for me, there was really no other option. Either I was going to ruffle feathers, and like change, or stay the same and shut up and just do what I was expected to do. I think that's where it comes from, that grit, that resilience, and like no other option, Like what's the alternative?
That's a good point. And I think it's like, rather than looking at it like this person's trying to look down on me, it's an invitation to rise up.
But like with you told me about a piece of content that you created on, I think it was LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That ruffled some serious feathers.
Yeah.
But like, what was the alternative for you? Like not speaking your truth?
I think that's a good point, right? Because a lot of people are terrified of this happening. And
Yeah.
and I posted a piece of content on LinkedIn, and it was me with a whiteboard in this room. And I was like, here's the difference between branding and marketing. And I was like, yada, yada, yada. And it blew up and it did really well on Instagram.
Yeah.
My Instagram community ate it up, like great piece of content, Dane. I put it on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's a very different format where it's a lot of business types and people are doing business transactions. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people with PhDs that have gone, the academic route. And here I am, just some ragtag dude who's like thrown an agency together and figured it out. And some of the terminologies I was talking about were things I figured out myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is my truth. I use this with my clients. It's really good. But from someone in academia, they're like, this terminology is wrong. You're saying it the wrong way. It doesn't look like this in the textbooks. And the comment section blew up. And there was an argument between the creative community that support me and these academists who don't know who I am. And they were saying stuff like, who the hell is this TikTok wannabe entrepreneur, da-da-da-da. And I was just sitting back like so happy to see this play out. I was like, this is awesome. This is a giant argument. We had the CMO of Uber in there. We had like people I looked up to and admired, like roasting me in the comment section. And I DM'd every single one of them, like, I'd love to catch up for coffee. I'll take you out for dinner. And then some of them got back to me and they're like, yeah, sure. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, I think most people would look at that as a defeat or an L. And I looked at that as a W.
Totally a win.
Yeah.
But it was only a win with what you did with it. Does that make sense? Like, you could have just been the viral guy that just sat on the comments and did nothing with it. You used that, you used the community, you could now use it as a case study. We're talking about it now, or you could have just cried yourself to sleep, right? You know what I mean? But if you didn't do that post, like, how else would you speak your truth? Do you know what I mean? It just is your truth.
No, I think you touched on a good point here, and it's like, the authenticity piece. So for those that are, I guess, hairdressers now, like what would you say to them that they need to do, or anyone that's on social media that is scared to be authentic? What should their approach be? How should they look at it?
It's so hard because, the social media, like, part of me is going to tell them to like find trends, ride the trends, et cetera, right? Like, there's a formula to like, going viral. Definitely. I believe that. But then the other part of me is like, if you're just starting on your journey, who are you? Who are you speaking to? Who do you want to serve? And what value can you bring before you start trends? Because they come after the fact, really, really figure out who you are and who you want to speak to and who you want to serve. Who you want to serve is the most important thing ever. That's what I would say to them now.
That's a really good point. And when you're looking at who you want to serve, what are some things that you like to help people look for when they're trying to figure out, well, I don't know?
Well, what are you doing? Like, say, for example, let's take a hairdresser. You've got hairdressers that are amazing salon suite stylists, like they're in the salon, they're behind the chair. Their ultimate goal is to be booked out, right? So you're not going to be creating content that is for hairdressers, right? So you're not going to go teach people how to do hair as a hairdresser. You could be doing DIY content. So, you could be calling out your dream customer like, hey, this is how I style my hair using X. This is how you maintain your hair at home. You are the expert. You are the authority. Those clients want to learn from you. And in turn, they might book you, because they resonate with your authenticity. They resonate with your personality. They resonate with what you're wearing, and that's why it's really important to stay true to who you are and not just ride trends.
Yeah, and I think you raise a good point regarding like speak to your actual audience. So if you want to fill your chair, speak to the client. What about those that are like, I don't want to give my secrets away for free. I don't want other stylists to steal my tips and my tactics. I don't want people to do this at home and not pay me for it. How do you I guess help people kind of curb their mindset around that?
A really smart person once said to me that what we do is handmade, right? I didn't get it at first, and then she said it again. I was like, oh my God, it's true. What we do is handmade. So regardless, I could teach you everything I know, Dane, like everything, right? But my approach to those learnings and what I'm teaching you is vastly different. Like, you can't teach, you don't have the same taste. My hands are going to move differently. We could create exactly the same piece of content. Exactly the same piece of content. We could do exactly the same hair. We give it to a different editor, they edit it differently. It'll serve differently, It could be on TikTok and with a different format or a different font. It's just going to look different, right? And I'm never, ever, ever scared to share my secret sauce because that's mine. Like, and I want to be able to add value to that person. And what people decide to do with it, I wish them well, you know?
That's a good point. It's like you give it away for free. You create your own vibe, your own charisma, your own tone of voice, your own editing
100%.
style, and it's you know, I saw Christo talk about this where it's like he calls it like the Gordon Ramsay effect. So he gives away all of his recipes on TV for free, essentially,
Yep.
on free to air TV. Then people rush to Myers and David Jones to buy his cookware
Yep.
because they're like,
I need that to
I
get
need that one to make the food that good. And it's this perception, it's this law of perception. So regarding your perception, you pride yourself on challenging the status quo
Yep.
and inspiring women to feel beautiful, confident, and empowered. How did you find your voice within the industry when, you know, you were seen as this digital creator and you're kind of up and coming and earning your stripes? At what point did you really find your voice and really lean into your power?
I think it's been all the way through. I don't think that there's been a pivotal moment, so to speak.
More incremental?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's been a long time. Like, this didn't happen overnight. I've been doing hair since I was 14 years old, and I've never been scared to speak out, that's for sure. Yeah, I think it's just been, for me, I've pounded the pavement for a really long time. This is not something that started yesterday. There's not been like a quick way to get there. Like, I'm truly somebody who's like, I was born into the hairdressing industry, like 3 generations. I love what I do. And I'm also somebody who's tasted every part of it. So like, I started on the salon floor as an apprentice. I then started managing a salon. I then owned a salon. Then I became an educator and then a brand ambassador. And then from a brand ambassador perspective, I decided to go out and do my own product. Like, I've worked in big brands. I've consulted for those big brands. I've built their influencer programs and structures. I really feel like I've tasted every part of my industry. And I love hairdressers more than I love hair. And I think that's why product is the perfect part of my industry for me.
How long did it take you to realize that you wanted to do product?
Probably half of my career. And it took a really good friend of mine. He was just like, you're creating all these cool looks, man. Like, why are you doing it with other people's shit? Do it yourself. I was like, hey, that's smart. So we literally did. Little did I know, like an e-com store, manufacturing, and like there was so much about product development that I had no idea about. There was so much about building a big brand that I had no idea about. And I'm still learning every single day. Like, I can't wait for our little whiteboard session after this.
Let's go.
You know, like obsessed.
I want to go back to your childhood just for a moment and then
Yes.
dive into what you're doing now with the product and all the rest of it. You said that it runs in your family. It's generational.
Yes.
So when you were 14, like at what point did you realize that I wanted to do hair? Was it something your mom inspired you to do or your grandmother? Like, how did this come to be?
Yeah, so my parents are divorced, and every weekend when I would go visit my dad, like Sundays would be my dad day, I would, Saturdays or Sundays, and I would head over to my stepmom's salon. And her mum owned the salon, and then she passed it down to her. And then, I was a kid, like honestly, I reckon like 4 or 5 years old, like my earliest memories with my dad is in a salon. And yeah, like I was obsessed with everything about it. The smell of the cigarette mixed with the burnt hair, the nostalgia of like the women bitching about their husbands. Like, it was just so intoxicating. It's so different, like worlds apart to what it is now, but I still get that smell sometimes.
Yeah.
That I love, that I really love.
Did you think
It
that
really chose me, not the other way around.
So just being around it by osmosis, you're like, this is exciting. I want to do this.
Yeah.
By the time you're 14, you really wanted to get your hands into it and start doing it yourself.
Yeah, basically was still at school. I was 13 actually, and there was this hairdressing salon around the corner because my stepmom was like, she didn't have a salon at the time. She's like, you need to go and like work in a salon to make sure that you are 100% certain you want to commit 4 years of your life to learning. I was like, okay, and I wanted to leave school early. I didn't do a school certificate. I left in year 9, and I started working in a local salon. And then this hairdresser who was a backpacker from the UK, he's like, kid, you're way too talented at like 13. Because I could blow dry and everything. It was like part of my DNA, right? So I was just like, sure. And he's like, you need to go to Tony and Guy. And Tony and Guy back then was like the benchmark. Like that's who you wanted to work with. And I lined up for a job. Literally, there was like 14 people in the interview process back
Wow.
then. And, one beautiful woman named Kathy, she was like, I'll take her. She's amazing.
Wow.
And she taught me how to dress. She taught me how to, she took me shopping. She taught me how to walk. She taught me how to talk. Because at 13, like imagine a 13-year-old now.
That's crazy.
And you're putting them on a floor in a salon and expecting someone to pay $80 to get their hair done. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas she was really like, actually, she's got the skill. We've got to get her verbiage up. We've got to get her dress up, and I respect that so much. And I carried so much of that.
And you were 13.
I was 13, man.
And which one were you working at?
I interviewed in Oxford Street, which is like completely different for me. Like I was this Lebanese girl from Liverpool. I'd never even like been to Oxford Street. And then I catch 2 buses and a train to get to Oxford Street. I get there. There's like all these flamboyant gay guys. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what I want to do for a living. And then, they didn't want me at Oxford Street. I was obviously not a right fit. And she ended up, having this franchise in Leichhardt, and she took me on.
That's incredible.
And still to this day, like she carries my product in her salon.
Wow.
Like it really is the most beautiful story.
That's beautiful. And then like, what was that like being 13, working and learning and literally being told how to dress, how to speak, how to act, how to behave?
The best, man. It was the best. Like I kind of wish I still carry a lot of that in or I did when I was mentoring my team, because for me, we're in the beauty industry, and I know a lot of people, I'll probably get cancelled even saying this, but they don't rock up to work with their hair done. They don't rock up with their makeup done. They don't pride themselves in the way they dress, because they just want to be them, right? But I still think you're representing a brand, and you are your own personal brand within that. But being in the beauty industry, I think there's more to just skill, and it depends on the type of client you're trying to attract. And she understood that really early. She's like, you need to look this certain way so that person can trust you. If you're doing a corporate's hair and you're 14 years old, like we might need to put you in a suit jacket so you can just like make them feel more comfortable. And I was happy with that.
Interesting. So she was training you on the aspects of branding, presence, customer experience,
without even
comfortability.
knowing. Yes.
Yeah.
But truly, customer service. Like, let's call it what it is. Like how are you going to show up for your customer to make them feel comfortable? Because that's all it is, right? It's not about you. It's about them.
Do you think that that's changed in the modern world? Do you think people aren't really carrying that same tradition with them anymore?
I really do. And I think the smartest of brands right now are going back to basics. We've called it community for such a long time. It's such an overused word. It's a group of customers that you want to show up and serve every single day. And it's so important. Like loyalty programs are being brought back now because people understand that we live in a world where that influencer, highly curated, like private jet in your scene, like, fake entrepreneur lifestyle, that doesn't work anymore. It's not cutting through. Now it's about really understanding who your customer is and how you can better serve them, to thank them for supporting you. It's not the other way around.
And so when you're talking about authenticity, you're really trying to dial more into like who exactly you're speaking to,
Mm-hmm.
because how is your authenticity going to come across if you're not even aware of who your audience is?
Yep.
So how do you balance the creative aspects of hairstyling, from a young age right through your career, with the business side of the salon and the hair care products, how do you keep this stuff in tandem with each other?
I don't know the answer to that question. You
What
know,
have been the biggest struggles that you found trying to balance it all at the same time?
I feel like I outwork everyone. I'm not gonna lie, and I have a really good friend of mine that's been trying to like work on my whip strategy for many years. It just doesn't work for me, right? Because I'm a true creative. So I love chaos. I love working in chaos. And I think I was telling you a little bit earlier, like I have found a really cool way to like kind of put all my thoughts on an infinity whiteboard and just work on projects that are most important right now.
So for the listeners, what is a whip and what is an affinity whiteboard?
Okay, so a whip is your work in progress. So like it's your to-do list, really, in fancy terms, right? But I used to like keep it in my notes, right? So all the things like basic, tick it all off, like very simple. And then I was like, obviously this is a bigger business now. So we need to figure out a way. I tried everything, Monday, Asana, like every kind of piece of tech that would keep the team or me intact. Working with creatives, that doesn't always work because I felt like they spent more time making it pretty than actually actioning those items. So now I use actually Canva, the infinity whiteboard, which is like basically the whiteboard doesn't stop, which is so good for creative minds because you want to go wide, you want to go deep, but then you can create different pages for different projects. And for someone like me who's running like, 15, 16 large scale events a year, I need each project to have that size. And it works really well.
So take me into one of those infinity whiteboards. What might I see? How would you break something down? How do you explore it?
So for me, I'm doing like whip, so like weekly whip.
So what's a whip? Just to find that quickly.
So your work in progress. So
Yeah.
like your to-do list.
Yeah.
So this could be your weekly task sheet, right?
Okay.
So your weekly task sheet is sitting on the left-hand side, right? And that's everything that you need to, non-negotiable, needs to happen this week, right?
What might that look like for you for an event?
Booking makeup artists, securing like content team, making sure that everybody on board has got all of their advertising material ready to go, that the landing page is built, that the team has had all of the GWPs ready to like book all the gift bags. I've spoken to my husband. The kids are being looked after. Like I'm talking everything possibly that could need to happen is on that sheet. Then across is my overview because I think when you're so bogged down in the day-to-day, and especially for everyone who's listening, if you work for yourself and you don't have a big team, there's so many tasks that can overwhelm you and you lose like line of sight. Like what is the big picture? What is the North Star? So my North Star is always visible, always. So like that from till 2026, my calendar is sort of mapped out in that North Star project-wise and what we're trying to achieve. You know what I mean? Like what's the point of me doing that event if it doesn't get me to the North Star?
Right. In the moment, it might seem like the right thing to do, but in the grand scheme, it doesn't make sense.
Well, could take you away from your North Star.
It could be a detractor.
100%, So that always is above me while I'm working in the weeds, right? So like this is always here. And that way, if a task comes here that is going to distract me from that, that needs to be removed or given to somebody. And it's worked really well from us. And then the next board, like in Canva, it's called a board. So the next board that you can use is like your content strategy to build into that. What's going into that? And then it's live. So I can then share that or copy and paste it, put it in, or I can create a Loom style video that I could then teach my team how to then execute that.
That's a really good point. We use Miro board.
Is it similar?
Very similar. So like what we can do is create, there's another one we use as well. What's the other one other than Miro that we use? Right.
Oh, so exactly Milanote.
So we use Milanote and Miro, and Milanote's great because you can like implement videos.
Yes.
You can implement files. You can have files within files, and you can create like this kind of like three-dimensional whiteboard.
Yes.
And it's intense, and it just allows you to kind of put everything in one place. And it sounds like it's overwhelming, but it's really cool because it's like having your thoughts on a screen.
Agreed.
And then you can start to align things and put things together and compartmentalize?
Pretty much what I created in Canva. And the reasons why I chose Canva from a creative perspective is people get it already. So I needed to find something that they were already natively kind of working with. Milano, actually, my brother is a videographer, and he brought that to me when I first did our campaign, and it was amazing to flesh out because it's really good for people who want a customized template. Like someone, you know when you need ideas and you love a template, perfect for them. Because you've got like, I don't know, a photographic template. You've got a briefing template. You've got in Milano. Whereas in Canva, I felt like you have more flexibility because there's less there. And I do love it for the same things. I could upload video links. I could put in like, I don't know about you, but do you save everything on your Instagram? Like things that you love, like content ideas?
Yeah, I've actually got files now for like different things, like sales stuff I like, content creation stuff I like. Like I've got a little format because it's like my little treasure trove of ideas.
100%. So
Yeah.
then what I do is I take those links, I open it up on my desktop, I'll screenshot the cover image because I'm very visual. Oh, I just tipped some
Don't worry
coffee.
about it. It's okay.
I'm very visual, so I need that cover image to like trigger me.
Yeah.
I'll screenshot the cover image, I'll pop it into the whiteboard, and then I'll hyperlink it, make sure that we've got reference. But then from that, in that moment, I know what I want to create with it. But then if I go back to it, I'm like, well, what was that about?
Yeah, you
So I
forget.
straight away make it relevant to myself. So I'll put it in the content board and I'm like, I would love to see this like this. And I'll just park it. But that way my thought is parked and then I can go back to it. So when I do have a content day, I'm not sitting there with no script, no ideas, and like I'm like sitting in front of the camera going, what am I creating today?
Because it's
Which
really
I
hard
did
to
for
recall
years.
everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I also think today it's so noisy online that you need to find really smart, strategic ways to stand out. And so many amazing creators are doing it. So if you can take inspiration from them and then reverse engineer that piece of content like we were speaking before, make it relative to like you and your niche and like let's not even call it a niche, like your actual job, go for it.
So if you get a spark, park it, then categorize it,
Yes.
save it. And then, when you have a meeting with the team, they're like, well, show us an example. You're like, boom, boom, boom.
100%.
Yeah.
Or it might not even be your team. It could just be you. You could be having a meeting with yourself. Like I book in meetings with myself, and I'm like, okay, cool. What am I doing right now? And I need to time block things, I think, to go back to you, how are you managing it all kind of thing, is I need to allocate certain time to certain things, including my family and my kids,
So when you say you book meetings with yourself, I
Yeah.
find this fascinating, by the way. Like you DM yourself, you comment on your own content, and then you have meetings with yourself.
I'm starting to actually sound quite crazy.
But like, what do you mean? So when you book a meeting with yourself, like do you have a process or,
Yeah.
or
It's
a
literally
method?
a calendar, like email, like a Google Meet with myself, which is non-negotiable. Because if I book a meeting with you, I'm not letting anyone book over it. So I felt like, sometimes when you are across so many different projects, you can get torn, from side to side. And I just needed 2 hours to myself. That's a non-negotiable. It's a meeting with Nat. Done.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. I love the non-negotiable mentality as well. How do you continue to grow and evolve in the industry that seemingly is always changing, and what keeps you motivated?
My dad always says, he said it negatively, but he says you don't have a ceiling. He's like, you just don't like have a roof, right? And I'm always kind of like striving for more. And I really took that on board early on in my life. And I don't believe that there is a ceiling. Like, people say like, aren't you content? I'm like, no, I'm just not. Like, because I want to learn more. Everyone has hobbies. I don't. One of my hobbies is learning. And I feel like that's why I keep striving for more. Because the more you learn, the more you realize there's more out there and you shouldn't have one.
And do you think that with the climate changing, what have you seen change in the last 10 or 15 years, like with social media from like 2006 to 2010, 2015? Like, have you seen different eras within your industry?
Oh, not only just my industry, I think it's across the board. Like we saw, like from filters, like let's go back, right? So when I would would take a photo,
I forgot about filters.
I was taking a photo, like, on an iPhone, probably 4. And we're what, 16? So it's a few generations ago, right? So we would take a photo and then we'd put like a sepia filter or a black and white filter. Like you would never do that now, right? Then we went into like a heavily curated, really polished, beautiful, all about retouching, like not one bit of imperfection.
Having the beautiful feed. Yeah, curated.
Then we saw TikTok. And TikTok was like, I'm still not there because I still love curation because I'm in the beauty industry, right? But you saw this authenticity and this founder-led stories and this like crazy, like get to know me more and get ready with me. I'm like, we talk shit and I'm going to tell you about my dog and all of a sudden at the end, I'm going to sell you a product. Like it's weird how everything has evolved and changed. But I love every single generation of it. And I think every single generation of it is making us better because the smart ones are seeing the gaps, and changing the way that we do things.
And what's your opinion on when people are like, I don't like it that it constantly changes. I just catch up and then it changes again. Like, what kind of mentality do you think you need to have? Like, how do you find appreciation for it? How do you keep up? How do you adapt and stay agile?
I think you have to be excited in the learnings. I think that's it. Like, I've had many clients sit in my chair or in my room when I'm teaching a social media class and they will say that exact thing. And I try and share with them where I find my sources of inspiration because they're like, how did you know that? I'm like, follow Latergram's EDMs. Like, do you know, like, I don't know. Like, I'm obsessed with learning. Like, follow the creator. Follow, what's his name? The Instagram CEO. Guy with the glasses.
Yeah,
Anyway,
smart guy. Yeah.
Yes, but like, I feel like you need to find people in your industry, but also like in content creation to keep up. Like what's moving, what's changing, because the writing's on the wall, Like what about, I don't know if you remember, but like there was all of these like trending sound experts. Where are all of them now?
Yeah.
I don't know where'd they go. Like I don't see them anymore, right? Or have they pivoted and now they're brand experts? Like I'm sure you see a billion brand experts on Instagram.
Because I see trends come and go, and I see like styles of content come and go. Like when I started Instagram, carousels were like really popping off, and I was like, cool, let's jump on that train. Now it's like carousels are like, everyone wants videos now. But now everyone's doing talking head content. How do we bring some entertainment or theater into it? And I always just like a challenge. I'm like, cool, okay, there's a new game. We have to keep up. People are tired of seeing the same thing. And I think Instagram goes through different iterations, because people get bored.
Yeah.
We get tired of seeing the same crap. You don't want to watch the same TV series or show again and again and again. You want something new. 2 is like people, definitely want to see a different adaptation, like the same thing taught in a different way. Agreed. Or add a different flair to it or edit it differently. I think what's really interesting now is like people want to see social media kind of like a portal into your real world. Like take me into your real day-to-day life. I want to understand it really from your perspective because people are tired of the facade or the fake curated life that they know isn't real. They want to see the real thing behind the scenes.
Do you feel like you're doing that?
No, we're having a meeting next week and we're actually sitting down and we're going to discuss how do we actually give people unprecedented access to what we do here behind the scenes. And some of the conversations being, well, we don't want to give away our IP or the stuff that we're really great at. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the magic. People want it.
It's the magic, man.
It's like, what do they want? Let's give it to them.
And I've walked around here.
Yeah,
right?
It's fascinating.
It's not only fascinating, it's inspiring because each little hub and my how I judge somebody straight away is how you introduce me to your team. So when I met you, the first thing you did was take me straight in and introduce me to each and every single person in your team. And for me, that's just a good human, right? But each one of the team, their smiles, they're happy, the culture, like that shit matters, right? So for me, if I was, I would want to meet each one of them. Each one of them is a character, right? So like, why are you not creating content? Like, I want to see you create content, you know? Like,
yeah, Cam.
do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. That would be my, like, what I
No, I
would want to
agree.
see.
And we've been talking about this because I think you raised a really good point here is people want unprecedented access.
Yes.
Like I said to Cam the other day, when I'm looking at someone's content, what do you really want to see? And I've started asking myself that question. When I watch Gary, when I watch Hormozy, when I watch Mel Robbins, David Goggins, I'm like, I want to go into your worlds and really experience it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see this curated version of you. And I think when I started asking myself that question and then reflecting back on myself, I'm like, ooh, how could we utilize that? So we're really excited for next year. And I think
That's really challenging though.
it's not easy because
No.
this we're talking about like partially reality TV.
Which then comes with 24-hour access. That comes with,
More
And
editing,
a-
more planning, more prepping.
right?
My employees signing contracts that they're happy to be on camera. Like, there's a lot of extra
it's
work.
actually crazy. And not everyone has a D-Rock following them around all the time, right? So for me, that was always like what I wanted. But it's really expensive to do, right? So I wonder whether or not, and I've been looking at that, like, how do I give them a under the, sheets kind of vibe without having to spend 24-hour access?
Well, I think we're seeing the world go from Gen 1 social media. And what I define as Gen 1 is like you post and you curate and everything is very edited. Gen 2 is like kind of you creating a lifestyle show, partially.
Yes.
Like really having a camera over your shoulder as you're doing live. And if you look at all the highest performing content creators right now, they're doing it. Like that's the next era. And
But is it the journey of you building the biggest agency?
well, you got to look at it like
Like, is that the series?
potentially, yeah, because I think there's a few ways we've looked at it. And for those listening to this right now, like this is where I want to inspire people. I don't always have it figured out. And I think most entrepreneurs don't. Like I've hung out with some pretty big players in the content creation space and they're always like, what's next? What can we do different? How do we adapt? How do we get more versatile? How do we introduce new stuff?
Yeah, they're so
never like,
agile.
oh, damn it. It's always changing. Like it's always an embracing of change.
Yeah, it's exciting. But also it stimulates you creatively. It gets your juices flowing. It makes you smarter. Like it's just cool. It's cool to try new things. It's cool to test. It's cool to fall flat on your face. It's cool to get haters. It's like, it's so cool. Like, I don't know, man. You just, whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. Like,
Yeah.
really.
So take me into your world. Like imagine if we have unprecedented access to what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I understand that you're prepping for an event. You said you do 16 to 18 of these a year. Okay. So is it all your own in-house events? Are people bringing you in to help manage their events? What does that look like?
A little bit of mix of everything, really. Like if you look at, I mean, if from a consumer perspective, we'd have consumer-facing events where I'm starting to collaborate. I'm really good at collabs. I love working with different brands and sharing audiences and understanding like how our business is going to work
What's an
together.
example of one of those?
In recently, I'm talking to Nookie.
Okay.
Who is a Australian fashion label, really cool founder, Nikita. And, she is so customer centric. She's all about moments. And her and I just vibe. So I'm like, cool, let's share a space, create like a really VIP, almost like influential, like let's make our customer the influencer for a day. Let's put them, like get them picked up and dropped off in a fancy car and like let me do their hair and I'll get the best makeup artist to do their makeup and let them experience something that they never, they see this, they've been watching this for 10 years, but they're like, I could never be that. I'm like, but you can, let us give it to you for a day. That's cool.
Interesting.
So that's one side of the events. And then you've got like B2B events where like, the education masterclasses, in different genres, whether it be hair, color styling or social business, online events, in-store events, like with our retailers. Just did a big one with like Oz Hair and Beauty where I got to like go and meet my customers that are buying Natalie Anne hair care, which is so cool because you have no idea who they really are until you meet them. And then you got like big big ones like Fashion Week. We did a huge content suite. It's something that I've been dreaming of for many years. I've worked backstage at Fashion Week, which is very cool for most hairdressers. For me, I was like, oh, it's so boring because you do the one look on like 30 models and then you get one piece of press if you're lucky and you usually got to pay to play. So I was like, how do we flip this? So I really looked at where all of the eyeballs were. Where are we going to get the most visibility? It's front row, man. It's like the people that are going to the show. It's not the actual show, right? So I created a really, really big content suite. So it was an Instagram content suite at the grounds of Everly. They were the most amazing partner. I put 60 artists, 30 hairdressers and 30 makeup artists in the one room from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I invited 300 influencers a day. We did 1 hour appointments. And it was, the DJ started playing at 6 a.m. We didn't finish till 6 p.m. It was fucking crazy. We created, I believe, on average, 12 to 1,500 pieces of content a day.
Wow. That's incredible.
Gnarly. The only thing I regret was not setting up some sort of EMV metric to measure. I couldn't keep up. Like, I was like, do I download the stories? Like, what do I do? Do I just put this up? Do I repost it? Like, it was crazy. And then my friend who works in media, she goes, you're measuring all of this, right? I was like, no, just thought it was cool. So we're like frantically downloading stories to like, build it out and like then present it. But off the back of it, we launched our alcohol collab. And off the back of it, we pitched the same concept to Dan Murphy's and to Westfields. Like, it was just crazy. Just crazy, crazy, crazy events.
Do you find it difficult to keep up with all of the details on all of these different events and brands? No,
Nah.
You love it.
I love it. I'm a control freak, like to the point where we had pearls on our pairs and I was across that detail.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
And it was in the Infinity board.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And I know you're planning an event now for 800 people.
Yes.
Take us into that. What are you doing?
Oh, it's called Stop the Scroll, which is very native to what we're talking about now. I've been teaching hairdressers for 10 years to get on social media. Like, they were a little bit slow to get there. Now that they're there, it's so noisy, so congested. I'm like, how can I now share my learnings with them in such a noisy, congested newsfeed? How do they stand out? We could say be authentic. We could say, create better content. What does that mean?
Yeah, how do I do it?
Like, they don't get it. So I thought it's really over ambitious. I've chosen 12 stylists, all different walks of life. Some have never done stage presence before. Some are like veterans in the space. Some have 100,000 followers. Some have 2,000 followers, because I wanted to even the playing field, because I hate rebuttals. Like, when someone's in the stage, they go, oh, it's easy for them because they've got that. I managed to like not do that. And the case study is basically whether or not we could get people to stop scrolling to get them to attend the event.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So our whole lead up campaign is the beginning of the education.
So then you're like, you're here
Because
of what we did.
yes.
Now we're going to teach you how to do that.
Yes.
Interesting.
In different formats. So the theory is we'll have all 12 artists creating, and the way that I've chosen them is for what they're known for. So like, we're opening with a guy called Kane. He's known for his vlogs, really flamboyant, really energetic, super entertaining. So his lead up piece of content is him being late and him thinking that he's like late to the show. And that went live, and that's had 200,000 views.
Wow.
So he wakes up and it's a dream.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks it's a dream right now. But on the day, he's actually late. So we open up and it's like this really cool render of an iPhone discovery feed and all of their amazing, like, different formats. Like, whether they're known for their carousels, whether like we've got Serious Sally, Chantel, who's like very educational, very traditional, and I love that because there's a learner for her, and then there's, the wit and the edutainment, and we're really trying to make sure that they understand there's storytelling. We have to be everything now. You can't just put up a pretty picture of balayage and expect it to convert, man. Like, you have to be a videographer. You have to be an editor. You have to be a copywriter. You have to do voiceovers. You have to try and test different things because it's noisy and we need to keep up. So I hope that this education session really arms them with like a different perspective.
Yeah, it sounds badass, and we'll put a link in the episode for anyone that wants to check that out. That sounds fascinating.
Thank you so much.
And like, to put an event like that together, how much time is involved? How much prep? Like, how do you get the speakers? How do you make sure that everything like really comes together?
Look, I think I'd probably say it takes a good 8 weeks for me, because you're trying to like also round up a team, make sure like, they're all available. WhatsApp is your best friend at that point, because you just want to make sure that all of your conversations are happening in the one spot. I'm obsessed with Loom videos because I can do a presentation and then like just deliver it in a way that they don't have to read it. Yeah, good solid 8 weeks, because you've got your lead up, your promo, like making sure everyone is comfortable. Like, I love that. I want to make sure that they feel confident, while they're busy figuring out what they want to wear,
Which is a big deal for a lot of people.
It is a lot. It's a big deal, but I love it too, because it means they care. They want to show up for you. They want to make sure that they're on brand. It's really cool.
What are the first few steps someone can take to start producing content? Because, it can seem overwhelming, scary. I don't know how to do it. I think for me, one of the things is like, just start consuming it from people you admire, you want to like work like. Just start there and start to percolate in that. But like, what's your approach, and what do you suggest people do to get started on social media?
I think you need to figure out and taste what you're good at. So, for example, if you're a good writer, start there. If you are really charismatic and you're cool on camera, I would literally get a tripod, open up your iPhone, start videotaping. I think, if you've got a good eye and you take beautiful photographs, start shooting your content like that. I don't think that there's a right or wrong for anyone. I think you need to taste everything, but then also utilize ChatGPT, utilize the AI tools that are available for you now, utilize Canva and its template. It is so much easier now to create content than ever before. So much so that your, I guess, challenge will be is how do you then stand out? Because it all looks the same. Like, how do you prompt ChatGPT in a way where you don't sound like a robot? And my caption is vastly different to your caption. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or how are you shooting a different perspective? Like you said, like is it over shoulder? Like one of my friends
Like
came in with
GTA
one
style.
of those. No, she came in with one of those like tripods that hang on her neck.
Yeah.
So it was like true POV. Like, it was actually POV.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was super cool, because like you actually got to see what she was seeing. Like, is it that?
Yeah.
But I think taste everything. And yes, consume. But I think sometimes people overconsume and they get so caught up in what other people are doing that they never get around to actually producing, or they get disabled by their content not looking at that level yet, because they're looking at creators that have been creating for 10 years. I'm like, bro, you start here. Like, that's cool too. Like, my biggest thing is I love the next generation. And I've always said to apprentices, I'm like, dude, don't try and be me. It's inauthentic to you. You can't tell my story. It's my story. I was like, tell me your story from today.
That's
I
so
was like,
true.
how sick would it be is if we could actually watch you learn? You're an apprentice. Why are you trying to be a CEO? Like, don't fake that. The fake it till you make it doesn't work right now. I was like, if you can share with me your learnings today, like, hey, I'm a first-year apprentice and I just went to a Natalie Anne class and it was dope. I learned this. Check it out. This is what I learned. This is what I did. Do you like my version of it? That is going to be more your truth. That is going to engage more with that audience, and it's going to take those people on the journey. Better yet, when you're 50 and you've got all of these cool it's literally your documentary right there of your life. That's pretty sick, man.
Yeah, document the process, like Gary Vee says, not try to edit the process.
That's it. But
Yeah.
I think even people get too fixated in that. I don't know.
Mm.
You know, when you first heard that, I don't know about you, but like me, I was like, what do you mean? I didn't get it. He'd be like, document, don't create. I was like, well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, define that, break that down.
I
for
was
me.
like, so do I go to a documentary? Like, am I watching documentaries? Is this a series? Like, I'm so literal.
Yeah.
It just basically means share your day-to-day lives, your learnings, and like somebody's going to appreciate it, someone's going to listen to it, and somebody's going to learn from it.
Exactly. And I
Funny
think
that.
you're right in saying like just own where you're at, right? So don't try to be the master if you're not a master. Like I think content can be so fascinating from a unique perspective. And if your perspective
sure.
is I'm starting, that's interesting to someone. If your perspective is like I'm pretty early and I'm making a ton of mistakes and everything's going sideways, that's interesting to someone.
Like there's that guy that's going viral because he's like a 9 to 5. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I don't know.
Like he literally takes you into his mundane 9 to 5. Like he's like, I'm a super white guy. I got a basic job. I fucking hate my life. People watching it like crazy. Like he's at his office. He gets the same coffee. He goes through the same. Like it's this, crazy thing that people like watching.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of
insane.
cathartic and interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's like trying to find a unique angle. Like, have you seen Poor Boy Coffee? I brought him up a few times on the pod.
I think I have.
He's this guy who started a cafe, wasn't really doing well.
Pop-up guy?
I think he's got an established retail business.
Okay.
And he's like, it's called Poor Boy Coffee. And he essentially just goes through his day to day and he's like, this is how many coffees I sold. This is how much money I lost.
Oh, yeah,
Here's
I
my
know that guy.
numbers.
Yeah.
And I think people are finding the entertainment in this reality of someone's life. And it's getting weird, but
It's weird.
people certainly love watching it.
I love, see, for me, I don't really, like, I watch things, but I don't really watch things. Like I watch them, I pause them, I hear them, but I'm like reading the comments straight away. Like I'm the popcorn girl that I was like, oh, that's juicy,
But yeah, I think it's just capturing that authentic reality and doing your version of that.
Yeah, and that's really challenging. And I think that's something I'm going to ask you, right? How do you keep it on brand?
That's a great question. I think it depends on whether you're a corporation or you're an individual. And I
One
think
and the same, right?
one and the same in many ways. I think I treat them slightly different. So
Okay.
a corporation typically has a core promise, a core key or function or a thing that they do. Like Red Bull are always pushing the boundaries. That's
Yep.
kind of their thing. And Nike's always about like, just do it, pursue greatness. Harley Davidson's always about like, freedom and liberty. It's I think a bit easier with a corporation to really dial in on their thing. And formulate content around that in famous cases. For a person, it's a little different because there's nuance. Like if you look at someone like Joe Rogan, he like is a UFC commentator that was on Fear Factor, who's also a comedian that has a podcast and loves hunting and promoting and building brands.
Yes.
So it's a lot of stuff. And I think, Gary Vee said this, kind of perfectly. He's like, you are your niche. And my interpretation of that, because I think people can interpret that however, it was like, oh, okay, like all of you, the way you are is unique. And just live into that and own that. But I think you still need to curate it slightly. And what I
Agreed.
mean is at the beginning, you have to kind of be really dialed in on one thing to the point you said, which is, well, who the hell are you speaking to? Who's your target demographic? What do they want? How do you entertain them and give them what they want, the way that they want it packaged? But it has to be authentic to you. But there's still a bridge of strategy where it's like, what do they want? Why should they care? Why would they want it from me? Where else would they get it if I didn't provide it? And then how do I bring something special to the equation? And it's difficult to unpack, but I think the first step I tell people is like, just start by producing content. And if you're scared, like do it on a private feed and have your mom and your friends on there.
Yeah, agreed.
And just turn the camera on and just film it, edit it, post it, and just get comfortable with the creative process and explore it. Don't try to be perfect from the jump.
No.
Just
And
try
I
to have
think
something.
lean into the imperfections.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the secret sauce is there also. People, I think like people really enjoy those stories. Like I think less people will celebrate your successes and more people will support you if you've fallen down a little bit and shared that. I don't
Because
know if
we love
you've had
imperfect
that.
characters.
For sure.
We love imperfect characters. Like look at every Disney film, every famous blockbuster, the primary character is always flawed. But we like that about them. It makes them human. It makes them relevant. Yeah. So I want to share a quote that you shared, which is, we all deserve to feel beautiful and confident no matter what our age, ethnicity, or hair type is. What does that mean to you?
Oh, it means so much. For me, when I first started in hairdressing in Australia, the way that we're taught and the way that we do hair was based around Caucasian hair types. I didn't have that at all. Nor did I feel like the products that were available were for me either. And I didn't respect the way that we were being taught. So I had to change that. I taught myself. My clients were vastly different, all different ages, all different ethnicities. And that's because I needed to understand every single hair type to be able to master each individual one.
How many hair types are there?
So many. There's like 6, 7 different curl types, or even more, really, when you think about it. But technically, there's so many, and there's different journeys and life cycles of a woman's hair. Like when you're born, it looks a certain way. When you're a teenager, it's a certain way. You could be having hormonal issues, and it's a certain way. You get cancer, it falls out, it grows back different. You go gray, it's different. And your hair tells you so much about yourself. It tells you stories. And I think that's why that quote means so much to me, because I just had to change it.
So when you look at someone's hair and they might say things like, I want it to look like this.
Yeah.
What's your go-to?
Rebuttal?
I'm trying to be polite here.
But like usually, I feel like, most hairdressers go like, what do you want to do today? Whereas I kind of start with a conversation, and I never start with a cape on, because, you rock up and your client's got a cape on. Who is she? You don't know her. So I've always been one to like sit down, eye contact, never speak through a mirror, because you lose that. And make sure that the cape is off so I can identify like who she is. That all is like what she's wearing, and she could be like a corporate, she could be a mum within activewear, So the consultation is everything. That's where I usually start.
What would be involved in the consultation? So obviously sitting down, eye contact, profiling, their lifestyle, what they typically do.
I usually start with what they hate.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what they like is huge. If they show you a reference photo, I usually just stick my finger over the face, because I'm like, do you still like it, or you want to look like her? Like is it the hair you like, or you want to be her? Like everyone loves J-Lo, but no one really likes warm hair. Like they're like, I hate warm hair. I'm like, why you show me J-Lo? So I think what they don't like is where we start. And then I ask, what do you love about your hair? And we really want to make sure those answers are higher up in the priority list. Like, do you love your curl? Do you love wearing it natural? Do you hate it? Do you want to smooth it out? Like, great. I'm not going to deny that. I think, our job as beauty professionals is to make sure that she feels beautiful. It's not about you, not about your content, not about what you're trying to capture. I had this one client that used to come in all the time, and I swear to God, she would come every 4 weeks, and she would have, like, I'm this much cut off her hair, to the point where my team was like, dude, how do you even charge her? You're not even cutting it. You're just talking to her for 20 minutes. I was like, but that's what I'm charging her for. Like, she wants my time. Like, it's not about the hair. She just trusts me that I'm only going to take this much off. And I don't try and convince her to take more off. So,
Interesting. And I think like it's such an important detail when you're working with a client, because when we work with strategy, sometimes people come in, they're like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. Like, we're talking about your life and your personal brand and your company. Like, we need to figure out how you want to do it. And then they're like, well, I'm looking to you for the perfect answer. And it's like, there's no silver bullet. And I think, when you're working with a client or you're working with a business or an individual, like oftentimes.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. Which
I'll tell
part
you
of
why.
that?
The silver bullet thing.
People
Because
people look for a silver bullet.
but they think that you have that answer.
They think that
right?
you have it in the barrel ready to go. Like, surely this guy, I'm paying him a lot of money, he's going to have the answer.
They think you're Jesus.
They think you're Jesus, but
Yeah.
oftentimes as a consultant or someone that they're going to for advice, it's actually you're mirroring who's in front of you, and you're allowing, I guess, a safe facilitation or a transition from where they are to where they want to be. And they have to tell you what that is.
How do you get there in a timely manner? Have you kind of reverse engineered that with yourself and go, these are the key questions to get us to that faster?
It's a good point, and I think there's different personality types.
Yeah.
And there's like, for example, like some people are like, I want to compete and be the best
Yeah.
in business,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, okay, cool, you're that kind of archetype. Other people are like, I just want to make money and sell my business. A
Great.
very different conversation. And I'm like, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Some people are like, this is my passion and I don't care about the money. I just want to really spend all my time doing this. So I try to identify what type of entrepreneur they are. And then I try to almost always extrapolate, well, what are your goals? Like, what is the destination that you're trying to get to? Because for me, the brand is like people's perception of you, your experience, what they get, where you currently are right now. Branding is like, where do you want to be? What's your mountain? Like, what's your Mount Everest? What's your Mount Olympus? What does that look like for you?
North Star.
For
yeah.
me, for Cam, for Rachel, it's like, what's your North Star, right? You talked about it earlier. It's very clear. And I think the way I kind of look at it is similar to you is, are we focusing on the battle in front of you right now? Or are we looking at the war?
Yeah.
Because you might be winning this battle, but are you winning the war in the grand scheme of things? And oftentimes when we look at their version of war or their Mount Olympus, it's actually out of synchronicity with what they're currently doing.
Of course.
And then I try to retrofit, well, what are the things that are in the way? Is it fear? Is it concern? Is it overwhelm? Is it stress? Is it lack? Are you in survivor mode so you can't even fathom doing this right now? I just try to get the ingredients and then very carefully allowing them and their minds to slowly build a path between where they are and where they want to get to. And at least just like do what I call a mud map and be like, does it look like this as an example? Well, no, we can't do that, and that because they're problematic. Okay, what would you replace them with? So I really try to see myself as a facilitator up the mountain, so to speak.
So say, for example, do you do that with a personal brand and somebody who has our brand, let's call it our company or corporation? Are you doing them simultaneously because everything is very founder-led now? Or are you okay if they don't want to lean into the founder stuff?
I'm okay if they don't want to do it.
Okay.
I think there's, like you said before, there's no one way.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just their way. So what works for them, maybe, I tell people all the time, maybe personal branding isn't for you. And that's totally cool. Maybe it is. Maybe like there's so many different ways you can pair, match, and strategize. There's literally 1,000 different potential routes we could take.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find one that works for you that you're excited about, which sounds like what you're doing with hair is when the client's in front of you, you're like, hey, tell me about what you love. Tell me about what you hate. Tell me about what makes you excited. Let's stop looking at JLo's face. Like really trying to pull it out of
it's so
them.
funny that you said that, like, as a stylist who believed in condition, like hair condition before result.
What's hair condition?
So like beautiful hair, like healthy, like making sure that the hair is integrous, right? So we maintain that hair health. So if we're there, most people want, like, you want to go from black to blonde. That's not a good idea today, right?
That's a big jump. Yeah.
Well, it's like, I have a white labeled product and I want to exit 100 million and I don't have a following. Like,
Yeah.
we're there. But my clients, that's why I said to you, it's really important to identify who they are, because I needed the client that needed to understand that we're on the long journey.
Yeah, it's not an immediate thing. Yeah.
No.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So for you, looking back on your career, what's something that you wish that you had have known at the beginning that you
Nothing.
now know? I love
Nothing.
that.
Man, nothing at all. And
Wouldn't
it's
change it.
only until this year that I fully understand why. Because every single part of my career has then opened up the door to my mind to then open up the next door, the next opportunity, which then led to that learning, to that opportunity, to meeting that person. Nothing. I would never change it at all. Not a single minute.
Because I think a lot of people are scrambling to find the pathway, the big answer, the big outcome. And you're saying, no, I had to incrementally adapt and learn every lesson along the way.
And I'm obsessed with it. Like I would do it the same again, but faster. Because if we were in a parallel universe, like she would be smarter.
I think you're pretty smart.
No, but do you know what I mean? Like she needs to be smarter. Like if I could build the archetype, like she's more intelligent because she's lived before, and therefore it'd be cooler. And yeah, I don't know, man. And together, like I think when you are looking at your North Star, it changes. It's okay for it to change. Like I think that was something I needed to learn. It's okay. It's cool. It's fun. But you got to have the right personality type.
Yeah.
Because then you just get depressed.
How do you want to be remembered?
As somebody who built an incredible community on kindness that taught something.
And what's a quote or a mantra that you've carried with you on your journey that you wished everyone listening to this would immediately implement?
Exactly that. I think if you're trying to build something big, build it with like kindness, you know. I'm super, super generous with my knowledge, with my time, with product. Like, you know, I'm Lebanese. So we're generous by nature, by culture. And I hope that my generosity is something that I can continue to grow and then help it rub off on other people.
Yeah. And how would you define like the Lebanese culture? Like what is it that you carry with you?
Hospitality. I'm a big feeder. Like for me, like if you come to an event, you're getting fed. Like if you come to my house, you're getting fed, right? And that's not because I like to make people fat, but because I it's my love language, right? And I think when you break bread with somebody, you learn a lot about them, you know? And I think there's so much about our culture, dancing, family, respect, love. You know, I think that gave me all of the attributes that I needed to build a good company culture.
I love your insight into business, your approach to being an underdog and being willing to ruffle feathers, and also like a willingness and a grit to kind of like rough it out and just figure it out as you go. And a lot of people in business are always trying to have the perfect plan. It's clear to me that you're someone who's willing to take on the challenge, have fun with it along the way, and do good in the world and make something out of it.
Ditto. I feel like super like-minded.
Very cool. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. We certainly would love to have you back in the future. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with this event.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Yo, my name's Dane Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then I started my agency, Rival. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral and Rival makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about Rival.
Rival is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.